Well, so thank you all for coming to our first Outside the Box series, where Catholic business leaders and political leaders come to give us their insights into their life, what they've done, and why Catholics like ourselves and students like ourselves will change the world. So, without further ado, Senator Santorum, he was a presidential candidate in 2012 and 2016. In 2012, he won 12 states, at 11 states, and the Iowa caucus. Also, he's the father of freshman Peter, and my father-in-law too. So everybody give him a round of applause, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. And first and foremost, let me thank folks at Christendom for all of the wonderful experiences I've had here over the years. Tim and Kathy, who I know are here. Usually they're together. Their seats over there. They have a reserved seat next to us.
Declare my independence.
So thank you for the wonderful experience I've had here. I had the opportunity to speak there a couple of occasions, and really been a wonderful relationship, and so excited that my son Peter decided to come here, so have an opportunity to come here and spend a little more time. So yeah, something very special here, as I'm sure you know, and I hope you embrace it and just suck it dry. Get as much out of it as you can, because you're going to need it when you cross the Shenandoah and go wherever you're planning to go, because the rest of the world is not like this. Obviously, you all know that. For those of you who don't know that, the rest of the world is not like this. I thought about a little bit about what I'm going to say here today. So let me just start with a Protestant thing. You can see here, shake it up a little bit. Anytime, because I was involved in politics, and believe it or not, back in 2006, I think it was, I was on the cover of Time magazine. It's the only time I've ever been on the cover of Time magazine. For all of you young people, that used to be a really big deal. Now everyone knows what Time magazine is. But the cover of Time magazine, it was sort of, you made it if you were ever on the cover of Time magazine in the world of certainly politics or business or anything else. And so I was on the cover of Time magazine. Now, I was on with 25 other people, so I was on this full disclosure here, so you check and say, oh, wow, he's like this big. True, I was. But I was on the cover of Time magazine because I was listed by Time magazine as one of the top 25 evangelicals in America. I was listed as one of the top 25 evangelicals. I didn't know this was going to happen. They didn't interview me for the piece, but they listed me as one of the top 25. And so they did a little piece, and in the piece they did mention that. Well, let me step back. I didn't know. I hadn't read the piece, but I heard that this was coming out, and so I called Time magazine. And the editor, I said, do you know that I'm not an evangelical, that I'm a Catholic? And they said, yeah, but every evangelical we talked to listed you as one of the top 25. I said, okay. So they mentioned in the piece that he's a Catholic, but he's still one of the top 25. So I say that in that I think one of the things that I was able to accomplish in the time that I was in politics was a bringing together of evangelicals in the political sphere and Catholics that had not really happened before. And the principal reason is that most of the Catholics involved in public life were nothing like me. Most of the Catholics, if you look at Catholics, the most famous Catholics that are out there, the Ted Kennedys and the John Kerrys, and you go on down the list. Almost all of them are from the upper Midwest and Northeast because that's where Catholics are. If you look at a state like Pennsylvania, close to 30% of the population of the state is Catholic. You go to a state like South Carolina, conservative state, 2%. Very interesting dynamic that Catholics settle primarily in the north and to some extent in on the west coast in California. But other than that, if you look at Catholic populations, they're very densely populated in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Great Lakes states, which up until recently didn't elect a whole lot of Republicans, and certainly didn't elect it didn't elect a lot of conservative. They elected Republicans, but they weren't conservatives, and they weren't Catholic, because up in the north, there weren't a lot of Catholic Republicans up until the last 20 or 25 years. So if you looked at who the public saw as the face of the Catholic Church in politics, it was very liberal Catholics from Massachusetts and New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and all. And so it was an interesting thing for me to come onto the scene as a Catholic, and all of a sudden they had the evangelical community, which was beginning to rise in politics, had someone that they could work with together. And I like to think that merging of evangelical and Catholic that occurred in the conservative world occurred during my watch, and I'd like to think that I had some more play, thus the citing the Time magazine piece. This is all a way of saying, really, starting my talk, is that I've been around a lot of evangelicals for a long time. And evangelicals are always asking this one question, and I never was able to answer. And they asked me, I thought, well, I should probably have an answer to this. But the fact that they asked it sort of ticked me off. And they asked this question. And those of you who have evangelical friends, I mean, really, hardcore evangelical friends, they will ask you this. What's your favorite verse? Right? Right? I mean, they write it at the bottom of the letters, or they have them, they tattoo it on their hands, or they have their verse. Well, I'm a Catholic, I don't have a verse, right? Most Catholics, most Protestants don't think we even read the Bible. And frankly, most Catholics don't read the Bible. So they have a reason to believe it. And so when they started asking that, I thought, well, maybe I should get it. And they said, no, I'm not going to give a verse just so I can have a verse to give to people who ask me if I have a verse so they can prove to them that I read the Bible. So I did. But over the last couple of years, last few years, I decided that I had a verse that kept coming back to me and sort of represented how I saw myself in the world today. And so it's become my verse. And it's John 15:18. Anybody know what John 15:18 is? Of course we don't know. Because you guys don't, we don't memorize the Bible. That's what we don't. Most of you, we don't. That's okay. I'm not being critical. But John 15:18. Nobody wants to try. If the world hates you, remember, they hated me first. And so that's what I say to you is, those of you here at Christendom, as you go out from here, remember, the world's going to hate you. They're going to hate everything that you are taught as true, right, good, and beautiful. They will hate it. But remember, they hated him first. And so as you go out, understand that the world that I went out to when I was graduating from college is a much more hostile world. As hostile as it was then. I mean, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. For those of you who may not have this historical perspective, someone who's lived through it, the world changed. The country, the world, but really the country changed in the 60s and the 70s. And I watched it. I wasn't quite attuned to it because I didn't really have a basis for understanding what the country was, but I saw the change. And I've seen the consequence of that change as it has metastasized over the past 50 years. And this revolution that's taken place in our culture has had a huge downstream effect on, well, your generation. Every generation, hence, will have this impact. But yours is probably getting it much more than any of the previous. Simply because there's just so much more information flying at you. You're just so surrounded by social media and all of these avenues in which they can twist and convince you of the rightness of their cause. And so, I was telling Dr. and Mrs. O'Donnell earlier, this is my first of 4 lectures that I'm giving at colleges this semester. I'm speaking here, I'm speaking at Concordia College, which is a liberal Lutheran college in Moorhead, Minnesota. The next one is Colorado State. Then I'm speaking at Cal Berkeley next month. And I'm not going to say a whole lot of different things there than I'm saying here. And it'll be fun, because it'll be a great dialogue, because I'm going to leave a lot of time for questions. Because what I find when I speak at Princeton or Harvard or Duke or wherever I speak, I'll give you an example. I spoke at Yale. This was 2012. And it was September 2012. As Matt mentioned, I had come in second in the presidential race to Mitt Romney. I campaigned in 30 states. We won 11 of them, came close in a few others. Really came within an eyelash of defeating Romney and becoming the nominee of the Republican Party. So by September that year, I was still a fairly well-known national figure, because I got a lot of press during the year when I was running. And so I came there, and I spoke to the debating society, called the Yale Political Union. They had a debating society there, and so it was the second time I went. I went back in 2007 and spoke on the issue of radical Islam, and had about 400 kids show up, and it was a very good, lively debate. So they asked me to come back and speak on this. Resolve: the government is destroying the American family. That was my topic. And so, for those who may not know, I've been very engaged and involved over the course of my political career in a whole lot of moral and cultural issues. And I'll explain how I got there, but I'll jump back to that in a minute. So let's suffice to say, I'm well known among the left, and that verse I just shared with you encapsulates the attitude that the left has with respect to these issues and me. And so I knew it would be a hot button place to go, but I was looking forward to it. And so I show up, and they had to change the venue because of the response to the student body. And I went to the biggest lecture hall they had, and 2,000 Yale students showed up. 2,000 Yale students. It's the largest gathering in the history of the Yale Political Union to hear me talk about this. And I got up, and I just walked through the facts. I said, what is the debate? So what do we do when we do a debate? We first define our terms. We define terms. What's a family? What's the purpose of a family? What's the impact of the family on government and culture and society? And so I walked through what a family is, what the purpose of the family is, what's the state of the family today, what's the impact of the state of the family. I didn't get into the cause of it, I did later. But I walked through all of this in a 45-minute dissertation while they're waving their rainbow flags and the like. They're not allowed to say anything. The only 2 things they're allowed to do is to or so those are the 2 things I heard all night, mostly probably a lot of serpents. But it was an interesting, it was a great debate, and afterwards I stuck around for almost an hour and a half. That's how long the line was to come up and see me afterwards in front of the stage. Anybody want to guess what the number 1 comment? It wasn't everybody, but the vast majority of people that I talked to. All of them with, their rainbow, outfitted in rainbow colors. What do you think the most common thing they said to me? You know what I guess? Nobody? No.
You're a bigot.
No, actually what they said is, I've never heard that before. So I share that with you that you're going to go out there, the world's going to hate you because the world must know the truth. Here's the blessing that you've been given. You've been given the truth, and you've been demanded to actually discover that on your own. You've been challenged to use your mind, to actually use reason, right reason, to come up with this. And here's what I can tell you in my experience as I go out and talk to college campuses. There was an absolute absence of reason. It's all about emotions and feelings. One of the reasons you see this pushback on college campuses today is because people don't know how to deal with someone who doesn't see the world they see, because it's an emotional reaction, because it's not based on, oh, maybe they think, let me understand why they think the way they think. No, it's a personal affront because it's an emotional attachment, not a logical or reasonable. And I share that with you in the sense that you go out there and you think, well, I've got the right answers, and I've got the truth, and I know you may have all those things, but you're going to run into people who don't understand. You're speaking a foreign language. You're speaking rationality and reason, and you're not speaking how you feel, or how they feel, or how they perceive you feel they feel. Right? And so I share that with you in that one of the great gifts that I've learned over the 28 years that I've been in politics, and I still sort of consider myself someone in politics, is that the person I was when I first got into Congress, and I first got elected to Congress back before all of you were born, and that includes most of the teachers probably. Back in 1990, I first got elected to Congress at the age of 32. And I just got married that year, and it was the end of the Reagan era, before the Clinton era, sort of a relatively calm time in America. Soviet Union had just fallen. There were articles published saying this is the end of history. The United States is won. There's no, this is the Americana, Pax Americana. I mean, everything was pretty good. I mean, it was a pretty, we had Roe versus Wade, but things hadn't really started. The Cultural Revolution hadn't sort of taken the next step. We're still struggling with that, but it was still culturally, it was different than the 1950s, but it wasn't dramatic. And so I went out and ran, I was 32, I'd never run for office before. I lived in the district a few years. Thought that congressmen and representatives were all fraud. They'd say one thing in Washington, go back home to a more conservative constituency, lie to them. So I said, I didn't really like being a lawyer. I'd been active, engaged. I got involved in politics when I was in college and worked on some campaigns, really liked it. I worked for a state senator for a couple of years with the law school. Started practicing law at a big firm in Pittsburgh, and just, representing big corporations and banks. That wasn't me. I just didn't see any redeeming value. Paycheck was nice, hockey tickets were nice, and it was all good, but it wasn't something that I felt like someone else could do that. There are lots of people who don't really care about trying to change the world who can do that. I need to do something else. So I ended up running for office against a 14-year Democratic incumbent, and not a good election year. It was midterm, the older Bush. Republicans lost seats that year in both the House and the Senate. I had no money, didn't raise a single dollar out of Washington, D.C. Knocked on doors. And I ran as a pro-life candidate, although I would be honest with you, I really wasn't that committed. In fact, I wasn't even sure what I would run as. Whether I was going to run, because I sort of wanted to sort of avoid the issue. I didn't really care about the issue. And it was my fiancé, soon-to-be wife's father, that sort of sat me down and said, look, let's set all the moral stuff aside and just look at the facts. He was a medical geneticist. He said, at the moment of conception, this is human life. I said, now you can do whatever you want to do, is construct laws, but understand what you're doing is you're killing a human life. And I said, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, then that's your position. And so I came about it very straightforward, that that was human life, and the Constitution protected life, and that I was going to be pro-life. So I got all the pro-life people behind me, and ended up pulling off really the greatest upset. It was such an upset. The morning after the election, the Wall Street Journal published a little article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that said, last night we heard that the incumbent congressman in the 18th Congressional District lost last night, so we called the Republican National Committee to ask them the name of the person who lost. And they didn't know his name. That's how little support I got. They didn't even have my name anywhere. So I was just a complete freak, one in a million, because I had knocked on doors and I hardworking. I'm knocking 20,000 doors. I said, Karen and I, we knocked on 20,000 doors. We did coffees, we did everything, and we just snuck up on them. We got to spend 4 or 5 to 1. It probably could never happen again, but it happened then. Now you would think that it would dawn upon me that maybe something was going on that was bigger than me. But of course it didn't. Because, I did this. Right? I mean, I was the one who did all the work, nobody else did. He did all the work. And so, for my trouble, after I got elected, they took my district. It was an election, it was a redistricting year after a census, between 1990 and 1992. They changed congressional districts, and Pennsylvania lost 2 districts. One of them was mine. So they took my district away and they broke it into 3 different parts, and I got put in with 75% of an 18-year incumbent, this 28-year incumbent district, which was 70% registered Democrat. So everybody basically said he's dead, and there's no chance. So I decided, well, I'm just going to keep running. When I was in Congress, I was combative. I mean, you think of the most combative members of Congress, that was me. I mean, I was going after members on corruption and exposing things, and actually founding things. Members of Congress who were doing all sorts of things. Go back and go with the House bank scandal and the post office scandal. I was behind that, and unearthed all this evidence that ended up ultimately in 1994 throwing the Democrats out of the Congress, out of the majority in Congress. So the first time in 40 years, Democrats have been in power for 40 years. And I was one of the rabble-rousers in the House that made that happen. Well, I ran in 92, and George H.W. Bush, older George Bush, got 29% in my district against Bill Clinton, and I got 62. And so, again, somewhat miraculous. First conservative to win a district like that anywhere in the state. And so I thought, well, okay, let's run for the Senate. I mean, why stop here? There's a Senate seat with the Democrats up for election in 94. So I just jumped right into it. Karen and I by then had 2 children. We had Elizabeth, who's in the back. She was born in April of 91. Karen was pregnant during the election. My son John was born in November of 92. Karen was pregnant during the 92 election. And we were pregnant again for the 94 election. So and I did. I won statewide. I won by the smallest margin of any senator who ran for election that year. You know what they call the senator who wins by the smallest margin of any senator? Senator. So I got up to the Senate at the age of 36. 36 years old in the United States Senate, and I am just full of it. I mean, think about it. At 36 years old, I had no money, my parents, my dad was a government employee, my mom was a nurse. I mean, and here I am in the United States Senate at the age of 36. And I spent those 4 years running for office. And I spent just to get ahead. And I got to the United States Senate, and something happened. And what happened, and this is something I know this is probably something I don't need to tell you because you probably do it, but I just want to remind you. 2 things happened that changed my life. First off, we moved the family here to Northern Virginia because my family was in Pittsburgh, and that was much too difficult to go home and then have to be all across the state, 13 million people in the state of Pennsylvania, and spend any time with my family and then spend 4 days a week here in Washington. It just didn't work. So I needed to bring the kids down. And when I did, we were blessed. Because we ended up in a church that helped change my life. And that church is St. Catherine's Siena in Great Falls, Virginia. And the pastor of that church at the time, I'll never forget, we were church shopping. I know that sounds like a Protestant thing to do, but we were church shopping because we didn't like the church that was in our geographic parish. So we went around to different churches. We found this church. I remember going in this church and hearing this priest preach, and it blew me away. 36 years old, sitting there, and it just blew me away. His name was Jerome Casal. And I remember walking out of there just so, it's full of the Holy Spirit, just so inspiring. And I remember walking out, and then I remember being angry. In fact, the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Because it had taken 36 years to hear a priest preach the gospel at Mass. You can say, well, yeah, they preach the gospel. But, and you all know this, and I know there may be some future priests in here, so just listen to this. Priests have 10 to 15 minutes every Sunday to change the world. And I understand you're changing the world with the Eucharist, I get that. But you have 15 minutes to capture the hearts and minds and feelings and emotions of the people sitting before you, who are consumed every day with feelings and emotions that say everything that you're about to say is wrong. And 99% of those priests mail it in. They completely mail it in. There's no heart, there's no soul, there's no nothing. It's empty. It's just not at all creative, inventive. And you say, well, that's not what the Mass is. I agree, that's not what the Mass is. But that's what that 10 minutes is for. That's why you have that time. And it's over and over and over again wasted in a world that desperately needs it. And I can tell you, it will make a difference. Here I am. Between those homilies and my wanting, because of that, to know more about my faith and digging deeper. And another thing that happened. I'm walking down the main court of the Capitol, and a friend of mine comes up behind me, puts his arm around me and says, hey, we have a Bible study here in the Senate every Thursday at noon. Said, would you be interested in coming? Now, this is what went through my mind. I got a 6-year term now. I don't have to go out and run for office right now. Maybe I can take a little time and actually think about that. And so that's what I did. So I started going to Bible study. We hit this church, and all of a sudden, in a year's time, my life changed. I had this happen to some of my cousins that see me, who knew me as a kid, and others, and people that I was, worked with in politics early in my career. And they say, you're a completely different person than what we remember you as. And I said, yeah, I am. I am the different. Up until that time, my faith was a part of my life. It was something I did on Sundays. It was the prayers that I would say, because I'm supposed to say those prayers. And if I took a test on theology, I'd get all the answers right. But my faith wasn't at the center of my life. It wasn't who I was. It wasn't what I was aspiring to. It wasn't my mission in life. And that changed. And a big part of that, as I mentioned, was the pastor, the Bible study at work, and my wife at home. Those three things, because she was on that same journey even more so than me. And it just sort of all came together. And that's why I'm standing before you today. Because had that not happened, you, Christendom, wouldn't have asked me to come here to speak. But it did happen. Because, number one, a priest actually was willing to say things to have some of his wealthy parishioners get up and walk out of the church and never come back. He was actually willing to preach the gospel as it was supposed to be preached. And we had a friend, a believer, a fellow traveler, willing to step out and, I know this is a hard thing for many Catholics, not here, but for many Catholics, to get their hands around, and that is evangelize. Actually welcome someone into a discussion of the faith. Vulnerably opening themselves up to expose yourself as one of those people. By actually inviting them to worship and to think and to study the Catholic faith or the Christian faith. And third, have someone at home who is supporting and encouraging and loving you and pushing you in the same direction. And those three things change. And the concrete change, in so many ways, but the one that probably is the easiest to understand, was my political career. I was elected as a conservative, but as I mentioned before, it was the bank scandal and the check scandal, and all these different things, and welfare reform. I was balanced budget amendment. I was considered a hardcore fiscal conservative, pro-business, strong, really strong on the economic side, the deficit side. But in the first 5 years I was in the House, 4 years in the House and 1 year in the Senate, I never said the word abortion. Anywhere, ever. Married and no. Well, that wasn't really the issue 20 years ago, believe it or not. But I would never talk about this because I knew that if you talk about those issues, those cultural issues, then you get labeled. So I could vote that way. It's okay to privately or even to some degree publicly profess your cultural beliefs, as long as you don't try to do anything about it. I mean, you can vote that way, but if you actually try to go out there and persuade others to do so, if you actually go out and try to move the public to do so, then you become, well, I remember when I was in the midst of doing that I went from being a plain old conservative to, well, let's just put it this way. My kids actually thought my first name was Ultra. Because it was almost the ultra conservative Rick Santorum. I went from this reasonable conservative to this whack-job, right? And was currently such. And why? Because I dared to step forward on an issue at the time, this was back in 1996, called partial birth abortion, which you would think is one of the most egregious things you can think of. This was a baby, it's delivered all but the head after 20 weeks of gestational age, so halfway through pregnancy. The doctor delivers the baby all but the head, the baby is still alive, and the doctor takes a pair of scissors and stabs the baby in the back of the head. Takes a suction catheter and sucks the baby's brains out so they can take the remaining part of the baby. That's this procedure. And someone came up with the idea that probably shouldn't be legal in the United States. Because that's sort of barbaric. And we shouldn't be doing this to children who would otherwise be born alive. They may not survive, but they otherwise would be born alive. And so the senator who introduced this bill was from New Hampshire. And we passed the bill in the House and the Senate, Republicans controlled it, went to President Clinton, and he vetoed it. Now, I can't think of the last time any president vetoed a bill. Think about it. I mean, I don't know, in your lifetime, other than that, most of you are alive probably then or close to it, presidents don't veto bills anymore. First up, because Congress passed them. That's probably the biggest thing. But they don't pass anything unless it's sort of wired. The president's going to go along with it. Why bother? President Obama vetoed the repeal of Obamacare. That's one veto I can think of, but of course had no chance of being overturned. It was a symbolic vote. This was actually a real vote, because we had enough votes in the House to overturn the president's veto, and we were really close in the Senate. It was bipartisan. And so this senator who introduced it was from New Hampshire. He was up for re-election, and he decided in New Hampshire for re-election, I'm not going to do abortion. So I'm not going to manage the override of music. And frankly, nobody else in the Senate wanted to do it. And so here I am going through this amazing time in my life where I'm just soaking up this relationship that I was having with Jesus Christ and understanding the Catholic faith and really just digging deep and understanding it, and here this opportunity comes. And I always say this, and I really truly believe this, that I think God speaks in whispers. And unless you're really close to Him, you never hear what His will is for you in your life. And so, for the first time maybe in my life, I was close enough to hear that. And I did what every political advisor said was crazy. I'm from Pennsylvania, it's a tough state. Million registered Democrats and Republicans. And I'm going to step out on an issue that, in my state, lots of Republicans don't agree with me on. And so I did. So I stepped out there and I was going to take on the issue of partial birth abortion. So I went up there and having, again, never spoken, I'm now managing the bill on the floor. I'm now the lead person carrying the debate. And it was a debate. It's not like most Senate debates where everybody gets up and gives speeches. It was actually a debate going on the floor of the Senate. So we had our first real intense debate was a senator from Virginia who's no longer a senator. His name was Chuck Robb. He had gotten up on the floor, and I had described this procedure that we were in detail and actually had not pictures but drawings, so nothing bloody or anything like that. And I described this horrific procedure, and he got up and he said, look, every medical procedure, if you describe them, would be horrific and bloody and terrible. He says, he said, if I described an appendectomy, it would probably unsettle me for you. Then Senator Boxer got up, who was my chief opponent. She was from California. She just retired last year. She got up and talked about there were women who were out there in the hallway as senators were coming in to debate, who were there button-hooking senators and pulling them and trying to talk to them. These are women who had had this procedure. And she said, there are women out there crying because you're trying to take away their life. And so I got up and I said, the senator from California said that there would be people, that these women are crying. I said, we would be deafened by the cries of the children who are not here to cry as a result of this procedure. And I said, and the senator from Virginia said that this procedure, pointing to the chart, is like an appendectomy. And I pointed to the picture of the baby and the drawings. I said, this is not an appendix. It's a baby. It's a baby. At that very moment when I said it's a baby a second time, you could hear the cry of a baby in the Senate chamber. Now I say that to you because, number one, you're not allowed in the Senate gallery unless you're 6 years of age. So there's no babies allowed in the Senate gallery. There's nobody on the Senate floor who's a baby. There's no one in the Senate floor who's under 6 years of age. So this baby cries, and I look at the presiding officer, the person in front of me who's managing the debate, who's in the chair, and he hears it. I look up and there's one reporter, and he's like, look all around, where is this baby? And so I, of course, just pause and then continue on, and the baby's stopped. Maybe it was 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And so I go on and debated, and it turns out that it was a Washington Post reporter who was up there. And he wanted to find out where this cry came from. And so he runs out into the hallway outside the gallery and starts running through the gap, running around, trying to find it. He comes across a couple from London who were there with the baby who's crying. At the very moment that I said, it's a baby, it turned out someone had opened the door to the outside. And the baby just happened to be positioned by that door, and that's how it was. I share that with you that maybe I'm different than most, but it's nice to know that when you think you're listening to God, that He's listening to you. And while we went on that day and we lost that dog, that little thing was an encouragement to me that I was doing the right thing. It came up again in 2 years, in 1998, same situation, passed it, the House, Senate, went to the President, he vetoed it, House overruled the veto, came to us again. This time we were 2 votes short. We got closer. And we debated all day long, I'm in the Senate, we're wrapping up debates about 8 o'clock at night, and I'm sitting there waiting for the closing script so we can shut down the Senate, vote the next morning. And I'm just having the sense, in prayer, really, that God wanted me to say more. And it was because we were getting calls from all over the world. Literally, the world was watching this event. This was on the front page of the New York Times every day, covering the abortion debate. And I remember getting this letter from this young man with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, in London, who said, Senator, as I sit here and watch people on the other side who are saying that this procedure had to remain legal, so we could abort children late in pregnancy when it's determined that the pregnancy wasn't what we were expecting. In other words, the child had a problem, a disability, or a defect of some sort. That's what they were arguing. We had to keep this legal. Not just because we were keeping abortion legal at all times, but because of these difficult circumstances. That's all the excuses they use. And it's, man, from one side, I'm sitting here watching the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world debate as to why it should be killing me. Someone who would identify with spina bifida would have been aborted. And so I figured I had to get up and tell their stories. So I went back to the courtroom and got on the phone. We didn't have cell phones back then, and so I had to call a regular phone. You guys know it. So a landline. So it was on a landline. So I called my wife, and at the time, we had just had our 4th child, and she was crying, Sarah Maria. Some things don't change. So she was there, and I said, honey, it's like 8:30 at night. I said, I know it's late, but just really moved to say more. And she said, well, she always said, that's what you're being called to do, you go ahead. So I remember going back down to the floor and getting out there, and I was so on fire. So I know this God has his son. And there are 2 senators who don't have a life, they're watching C-SPAN. And I'm going to speak to them, and we're going to change their vote, and we're going to pull up America. And so I went and I just poured into all these kids, poster after poster, picture after picture of these children, and told their story, and the value and worth of every child, and how this was an insult and affront to them, to the dignity of that child. So I finished, got home that night, all the kids were asleep, Karen was asleep. Got the next morning, as I knew we hit at 5 or 5:30, off before they got up. Went there, got in there, and we lost by 2 votes. So I remember sitting there, it took me a while, I was sitting there at my desk, and I was having a pity party for myself. I was thinking, what a fool I am. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, you're prideful, you thought you were such a big deal, that you could make all the difference. And I just felt like a fool. Until 4 days later. And 4 days later I got an email. My staff brought it in to me, printed it out. And it was from a young man from Michigan State University. This is what it said. The other night I was sitting in front of my television with my girlfriend on our couch. We were flipping through the channel, and we saw you standing next to a poster of a kid with a disability, so we stopped to listen. And as we listened to talking about this horrific procedure and about the lives of these children, I looked down and I saw my girlfriend had tears running down her face. And I asked her, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I'm pregnant. And I have an abortion scheduled for in 2 days. But I'm not going to have an abortion." I tell you this story, I tell you both of these stories to tell you that. Because I know this is about how we succeed out there as Catholics. Mother Teresa has it right. God does not call on us to be successful. He calls on us to be faithful. In those 2 instances, I was faithful. And God rewarded me in ways that I had no idea I would ever be rewarded. In fact, had it not been for that email, I would have thought that what I did that night was a complete failure. And so, as you go out into the world, and you go out and tell the truth, and you do it not angrily, not from your mountaintop, but you do it understanding that the only thing that can possibly penetrate the dark, irrational souls that just are concerned about emotion, the only thing that has a chance to penetrate that is love. That's it. In one particular kind of love. Christ's love. If you go out with the love of Jesus Christ, with His truth, to a world that doesn't know love, and read social media, it is a war. It's a war out there. Everybody in your camp, nobody even wants to talk to the others. I mean, Donald Trump has exacerbated that. Within families, people won't talk to each other. How are you going to breach that divide? There's only one thing, and that is love. And be not afraid. Be not afraid to fail, because guess what? You're going to fail. You're going to fail over and over and over and over and over. Why? Because the world hates you. The world hates you, doesn't believe what you believe. But that doesn't matter. Because you're here, yes, to try to be a solution to the world, but you're here to provide light, His light. And if you fail, if you make that argument, if you do that witnessing, if you evangelize or do whatever it is, just within your workplace, within your family, doesn't matter. And if you fail, just remember this. It's only, you believe you failed only because you didn't get the email. There's always an email. God will be faithful. You think God is not going to be faithful to those who are faithful to Him? Let me assure you. And I've lost a lot. I mean, I lost 25 primaries to Mitt Romney. I've lost a lot. And I will tell you, does it hurt? Of course it hurts. But I know that God has been incredibly faithful in my life. Some ways I have no idea. I meet people all the time who come up and tell me stories. I'm thinking, I mean, it just blew me away how I impacted their life from Alaska. And you think, how did that be? Because God's got all sorts of emails He's ready to share with you when you're with Him now. You will have stacks of them about all the different things that you did that you never saw. That you never saw of how you changed the world for a better place, how you brought people to Him who may be just somewhat distantly detached from the person that you affected, but maybe they affected someone else in a way that you had no idea. So, success is important. I want to be successful. Everybody wants to be loved, particularly your generation. I don't get it. I mean, it's just all this. I mean, I swear to God, your generation would rather have 50 likes on Facebook than $50,000. I mean, it's just, I don't get it. It's just this need to be noticed and affirmed. That's the world. That isn't Him. That's not Him. That's not of Him. That's first commandment stuff. That's putting other stuff before him, primarily you. And so I just encourage you, you have been given again. My final thing I'm going to say, because Matthew was trying to cut me off 4 times there. The final thing I'm going to say is another one of my favorite scripture passages. I don't know the site. So I'm back with it now. Too much is given, much is expected. The Catholic Bible, as I researched, because I actually looked this up, the Catholic Bible says, too much is given, much is expected. To whom more is given, more is required. Protestant Bible doesn't say it, they just say more is expected. We say required. So here's what I posit to you. You have something that a very, 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 very small percentage of the people in the world have. You know what you have? You have full-throated access to the truth. You have full-throated access. You have, right here, you have a gift that is the rarest of gifts in the world today. Now, that means you've been given more. And it's required. Don't take that as a burden. Take that as a wonderful gift that God has given you. And understanding that for you, the bar is high. The bar is really high. You live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We have more. We think about wealth relative to the world today and how wealthy we are versus the rest of the world. Think about us compared to 5,000 years of human history and how much we have in the church. Even if you're not wealthy, even if you're someone who's of modest means, you are one of the wealthiest people in the world today, and by any stretch, you are the top 1/10 of 1% of all the wealthiest people with all the wealth in the world. So you are that bar. I don't care who you are in this room. You are up there because you have material wealth and you have the gift of the truth. You have knowledge and the ability to do something with that knowledge. You're the required part of that scripture. So I just encourage you to be happy warriors. Happy warriors who go out there with God's love and the truth and be not afraid. Your country needs you. The world needs you. And there are souls waiting to be saved who won't be without you. You have to take your question.